We talk college football 24/7, 365 here at Mark Rogers TV with some of the best bloggers and broadcasters in the industry, including Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football. We're talking up the Ducks and the Bruins at the Rose Bowl this week. So you talked about expectations overall, Tony. Let's zero in on the expectations for 2017. We're now halfway through the 12-game schedule at 3-3, lackluster, 1-2 in the conference. Just coming off a win or coming off a game against Arizona, expected to be a win. The point spread was kind of iffy, right in that 2 or 3 point range, toss-up range, and they get manhandled by some degrees. And they can't beat what was forecasted to be the worst team in the division. They lose that game by 17 points. Now they're sitting at 3-3. What were your expectations preseason? Because mine were 8-4. I got to tell you that I was looking at all the conferences preseason and looking back at 2016, and I was seeding them not based on my own judgment, but based on the actual standings from last season. And I was looking at UCLA and going, 4-8, 2-7. They are the best 4-8, 2-7. Certainly the most talented 4-8, 2-7 team in the country. And I was matching them up against the likes of, the 12th and 13th seeded teams in the other conferences and saying they would win this game 8 out of 10 times. So I was expecting, I forget what the actual projection was, 7 or 8 wins. So I'm guessing that you were probably in that same ballpark, possibly, although the schedule's been very difficult. So what are your thoughts about what you expected in August versus what you're seeing in mid-October?
Yeah, I think when you and I talked after Pac-12 Media Days, I spent a couple of days, with the Pac-12 coaches there, and you and I talked, I think I had said I was looking for UCLA to be 7-5. 8-4 would be overachieving. 7-5 would be reality. I knew Memphis was going to be a tough game. Memphis is a very talented G5 school. I knew Stanford was going to be Stanford, even though, they had lost a lot of talent. They were still Stanford until proven otherwise. And, they owned UCLA. Right now they're 3-3, and I think 6-6 is about as best they can hope for right now. They needed to win that Arizona game to get to 7-5. Part of the challenge with UCLA right now is Jim Mora, admittedly, over the last 2 years, tried to focus the team on being more physical. We're going to get away from so many sprint outs and, quarterback sprints and things like that, and we're going to focus on being more physical. We are going to run up the middle, and we're going to be big in the trenches. Didn't work. The goal was to be able to compete with Stanford and Utah and USC in the trenches. Didn't work. Hasn't worked so far. Didn't work last year, and Stanford manhandled them physically. And you still have Utah and USC coming forward as well. You also now have a team that, because you focus so much on the physical aspect of it, they're not very quick, and they're especially defensively. You see quarterbacks getting to the edge really easily, and once they get to the edge, they're gone because they're outrunning the UCLA defensive backs. So UCLA really is kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. They don't play Oregon every year, so they missed Oregon's 4-8 debacle last year. But Oregon, while improved, is still somewhere in the unknown right now. The games that they've lost, the conference games that they've lost, they got hammered. So this would seem to be an opportunity for UCLA to say, hey, we can finally at least get to Oregon. We couldn't get to Stanford, but maybe we can get over on Oregon. Problem is that Oregon's got the number 13 rushing offense in the country, and they're coming in against a team that, can't stop water running out of the garden hose. And so it looks really dicey against Oregon. It's going to depend not on the defense, because you're going to have to assume that the defense is going to give up 300 yards rushing, and you're going to have to outscore Oregon. And that's a challenge. Josh Rosen is a terrific quarterback. He is so skilled. But if you watch the Arizona game twice, like I did for some unknown reason, you could see him really pressing in the second half. You could see him making throws that he had no business trying to make, because he's trying to field too much of the pressure on his own shoulders. And the stats showed it, and his performance showed it. And so this Oregon game is really a turning point. They can still get to 7-5 and maybe play in some low-end bowl game, which, considering they were 4-8 last year, is going to be considered a successful turnaround, maybe even enough to save Moore's job. But they're going to have to win this game to do it, because their odds against USC or Utah or Washington the following week are not that great.